what was that weird supernatural story that you wanted to say, if you remember when we started the episode?
Oh, 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 in Wisconsin. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, so we went out there to the House on the Rock. It's called, and the House on the Rock. This guy, an eccentric man in the I think the '60s, built this house on the side of a rock that kind of jets out into the ravine, and it has tons and tons of rooms, and it just goes on and on and on. And he has collections of a bunch of stuff in there. I mean, he has doll collections and machines, and you can ride through in a little man-made river, and I can't even describe it. There's so much stuff. It's kind of weird. It's kind of an odd, like if you're into like Ripley's Believe It or Not type museums and stuff like that. It's kind of along those lines in some ways, but anyways, it's kind of a creepy place, but it's just kind of a fun, weird place too. So we went here, and anyways, we stayed in this hotel nearby. It's called House on the Rock Inn. And anyway, we pull up to this hotel, and it's kind of dreary out. The whole time we're there, it's kind of dreary, like there's no sun. And the parking lot's almost empty. And we walk in, and the employees are just like pale and odd looking, almost zombie like. And they just stare at us. And we talk to them, we ask them questions, and they have really weird responses. Like we asked them, like, are we the only ones here? And they're like, well, we can't share that information with you. And there would be long pauses between when we like asked the question or asked them a question or talked and when they answered, and they kind of had dry responses, and it was just the weirdest thing. And if you've seen The Shining, right, the movie The Shining, so the hallways were a lot like the Shining. Like I would swear like there'd be an apparition in the hallway and stuff. It was crazy. And anyways, I got on this group. I'm on this Facebook group, Strange Wisconsin, and it's all these things that people talk about, strange things happening in Wisconsin. And I just told this story on a post, and there was a bunch of people hopped in and said, "Oh yeah, that's a haunted hotel." And so, anyways, I can't remember why I was going to tell you that. But I
Oh,
think we were
because
talking about Wisconsin.
yeah, when we started talking, well, reading this fifth chapter from the previous book, the whole chapter is dedicated to werewolves and dogman. And then the first, well, one of the beginning paragraphs mentions Wisconsin as the central point. So I said, well,
Yeah.
not only the 70s show reminds me of Wisconsin, but also when I went to this Bristol Renaissance Fair, which I said festival, I couldn't
Oh,
remember the name. So I said
yeah.
these things remind me of Wisconsin, and then you said, "Oh, I have an interesting story about Wisconsin that you think about Wisconsin." You know, if it come when it comes to your mind, yeah.
Yeah. Wisconsin's got a lot of paranormal stuff. Uh, and what was I heard that there was a statistic I heard recently about Wisconsin. I think it was something about the paranormal, but yeah. Anyways, it's a hot spot. Wisconsin's a hot spot for paranormal activity,
Yeah, it
history there.
seems to me that a lot of things that just happen in the United States, because it's a huge country combined of 50 states, there are
Mm.
always few things that happen there, like so. Um, they're like almost a pattern to, hey, expect some insane things. It's always a small rural town, place, region, so it's not a
Mm.
city. It always has tons of nature, forests, trees, and
Hmm.
it's always close to something that used to belong to Native Americans or Indians. It's like I see
Hmm.
these things easily, like whenever there's something paranormal or an urban legend or whatnot, like there
Yeah.
at least few of these things you can expect they repeat. When I was younger,
Yeah.
watching, but I mean, when I say younger, I don't mean a teenager, but a little bit younger, I was always thinking, and this made me upset, like, why do always horror movie producers make, their movies to be usually in small towns? Like, why is not sometimes in city where you can actually get a gun, call cops or soldiers, like someone can help you if there's a monster or something? But learning more about the divine council, learning more about all these entities that they showing like in force in nature, it makes more sense. So like the movie producers
Yeah,
would usually make movies according to these urban legends, and usually they're in these rural places with a lot of graveyards and caves and forests and stuff like that. So it
yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. That's true. Yeah, yeah. You talked earlier about where you were telling the story where the person said, "I know what I saw," and it was real to that person. And my my wife, when we were first married, not too long after we were first married, my wife and I were sitting in our living room, uh, and the stairs to the upstairs level of the house were to our right, um, about maybe 20-30 feet in the hallway, but we could kind of, from the corner of our eye, we could see the landing and the stairs that would go upstairs. And we were sitting there, we were kind of facing forward, and the stairs were over here. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, and we both saw this, we see a black figure kind of run down the stairs, put their hand on the banister as if to anchor their weight, flip around, and then the hallway went that way, and run down the hallway. And I saw this out of the corner of my eye, so I didn't see it dead on, but we both saw it, and we both heard the creak of the stairs as they were putting their weight on the banister and flipping around and running down the hallway. And I don't remember hearing footsteps down the hallway, but um, we both saw this at the same time, and I thought there was someone in the house. I mean, we had kids, and I grabbed the baseball bat, and I was ready to be in a fight with somebody. I checked every door, every closet. I walked out, I looked down the street, looked around the backyard under bushes and everything. I was convinced it
Basement,
was
basement
basement,
included.
basement. Like we looked everywhere. Like and we both thought there was someone in the house, but and then thinking back on it, we realized like there were no features. It was a black shape, um, and it was really quick. It was too quick that they could have gone anywhere. But we still remembered it was real. And my wife has had some experiences too. So, anyways, some other experiences. But so I tell that story, and I know it happened. I know it was real. I know what I saw. We both saw it at the same time, and there was nobody there. We never heard the door shut to the back door or to the garage. They would have had to open the door and leave the house. Didn't hear any of that. It was complete silence after that. So, that's why when I hear these werewolf tales or any of these cryptid tales, I usually believe them when they're telling it, because I've experienced some of that, more of a ghost type experience than a cryptid type experience. But yeah,
I have a couple of short questions for what you said. Your
yeah,
kids were never injured, right? Hurt,
no,
harmed. Okay,
no.
but did they also witness hearing, dreaming, talking
Oh,
maybe to some entity that was like a dark, shadowy figure, or no?
yeah, my kids have had experiences,
Um,
dreams. They've had dreams, occasionally, more when they were younger. And my one daughter has seen a shadow figure in the hallway once. Um, yeah, and my wife actually saw a bright white um, humanoid figure come out of a ditch and in front of her car when she was driving home from a party one time. It was like as bright as the whitest light you can think of, and it was shaped kind of like a human. And so she saw that. And then one time, after we had gotten together, she was driving out to where I lived, and she drove up and she said, "Oh, you must have been up in the bathroom." And I'm like, "No, I've been here on the kitchen and the main level all night." Because she said when she was driving up the lane, she was looking up at the bathroom window, and someone went like this, and looked out like they were looking out the window at who was coming up the lane. She saw the shadow of a head, just kind of went like this, and then went back. And I was never upstairs the whole night, like, and I was the only one there. So we've had a few things happen. Yeah.
Okay. My question, my next question is, could it be that your house, if you have any historical record, was built on something that was there in the past, like a graveyard or mass murder of the natives, or maybe not on top of that land, but very close to
Yeah.
it? Do you know something about it?
Well, these were in different places. Her sighting of the white figure was out at by a farm where actually a man had recently died. I think the day before or even the day of that she saw that. The brother of the man she was going to see, I think it was the brother, had gotten, I think, a forklift accident or some kind of accident, farm accident or something. And
Mhm.
so that happened. Um, the head bob one, we lived out at a farm where there was a marsh. Like, a marsh is like a swampland with the reeds and stuff. And then there was a lane that we would drive up to get to the house, but there was marsh on either sides. There was a family that lived there in the, I think, the 30s or the 40s. And one of the men, either the son or something of the family, drowned in the marsh on his way home from the liquor store one night. So that we thought that maybe had something to do with it. And then, yeah, I mean, the house with the shadow figure, the one shadow figure, I don't know of any history there. the the shadow figure that my daughter saw was here in this house. Um, and I don't, as far as I know, I mean, this was a pig pasture uh, before the house was built here in 1956. A pastor did live here for 20 some years, and there's been, I think, 4 or 5 families. I don't know if anyone's died in the house or anything like that, but we haven't had really any activity other than that. But I'll often get dreams or have feelings, and I'll just pray about it, and it feels better. So I do think that there's, you know, sometimes there's activity for whatever reason. But for me, it's I'm very confident in my faith and my relationship with Jesus. So I just use His name, and I pray to Him, and I tell the evil to depart in the name of Jesus, and I tell the evil that I belong to Jesus, and He's my Savior, and I love Him, and you have no business being here, and you need to go away now. And that's usually that's how we've comforted our children when they had dreams, and that's how I comfort myself. And at the night, I'll wake up sometimes at 3 a.m. and have have things going through my head or have a feeling. It's not something that happens all the time, but it does happen occasionally, and I do use prayer to deal with it. So, have you
Yeah,
had any
thank.
experiences or?
Nothing like that. My sister and I had just cases of sleep paralysis.
Oh
Um,
wow, yeah.
yeah, yeah. To me, it happened first time when I was back home in Europe after I just became a believer. So I always thought
Mm,
that was like a demonic attack. But then there's
mm,
this medical explanation why sleep paralysis happens. And once when I
mm,
had the guy who you suggested, Doug Overmeyer, whom I also met in person, when I had
yeah.
him for 2 episodes, he says, I think it was him who said, well, it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. They can be both medical
Mm,
reasons and spiritual reasons. I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah,
that's interesting. So yeah,
yeah.
I had that, but I wanted to say, because we mentioned Ward Heaney at the beginning of this episode, he was
Mm,
here as my guest at the beginning of August, and I interviewed him especially because of this documentary, mini documentary. It's actually docu series of 5 episodes he made called Dark Holler, and
I
they're
watched it.
available.
It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I watched Dark Color. I don't know if you did, if you watched both Dark Color and when I interview him, he speaks a lot about this shadowy figure. And this is why I
Mm.
wanted to tell you before we finish for tonight. I would just encourage you. I know you're busy with studies, but whenever you find time, maybe rewatch the episode I did with him, or maybe watch those 5 episodes um of the Dark Color, maybe with your spouse, and
Hmm.
watch and learn how these people that he was interviewing in in his state were having constant problems from different generations in this family of this
Mm-hmm.
shadowy figure being in home, being in a certain house, but also outside, luring, observing, whatnot, showing up.
Yeah.
It's scarier than many movies you'll see. So I would
Yeah.
just say maybe listening to him and people he's interviewing from their perspective, maybe you will learn more about this
Yeah.
shadowy figure in your experience because it sounds. I don't know
Yeah.
if everything is the same, but it sounds similar.
Yeah, it does. I did watch that series. I didn't watch every single moment of it. I actually fast forwarded through some of it, but
Mm,
I did watch most of it. And I told my wife we need to watch this because it's good. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think what's cool about it is it's it's not just like a documentary. It's like interviews with a family that has
mm,
had these generational issues, and then as they're talking to the family and interviewing it, they're discovering more things. The more people they talk to, weird stuff happened with their parents and their parents' parents, and it's connected with other stuff happening in the area that they grew up in. And there's intergenerational trauma kind of
mm.
weaved in with it, I noticed. um, and yeah, it's a really good series. I highly recommend it. I still need to sit down and watch it with my wife. We'll probably do that sometime.